This is Bedtime Stories, Grownup Edition, Unfinished Business, Part 12. When we left off, LJ and Veronica dropped Donovan off at a behavioral health facility so that he could check himself in for inpatient treatment. LJ advised Donovan to wait until after he'd begun treatment to have a conversation with Veronica about some of the decisions that he'd made. However, his intrusive thoughts got the best of him, and he decided to tell her all his business. Meanwhile, Angela was waiting for Amora in her office to have the meeting that they'd planned the day before, while Regina waited not so patiently in the parking lot. About 20 minutes after 11 a.m. service ended, Amora knocked on Angela's office door. "Come in," Angela said. Amora came in and said, "I'm sorry it took so long. I had to wait for all of the children to be picked up from children's church. A lot of our congregants seem to think that that's the perfect time for them to have casual conversations and catch up with all of their friends." Angela chuckled and said, "I understand. No problem. Why don't you have a seat?" As Amora made herself comfortable, Angela began. "Michelle, it's come to my attention that you and I have an association in common. It seems that I was pretty well acquainted with you, or at least your recent history, by way of a close friend. When you and I first met, I did not realize that you and the ex-fiancé of Quincy St. James were one and the same, because all of the stories about you, you were referred to as Amora. I need you to know that Quincy and I have a close personal relationship, and that doesn't appear to be changing anytime soon. In addition, I am dedicated to my role here as the leader of the women's ministry, and that doesn't appear to be changing anytime soon either. So with that said, I have no issue leading the group and having you continue as a participant in it. I have no issue with continuing to allow my daughter to participate in children's church in the group that you lead. I also have no issue with maintaining your confidentiality, which I've done up until this point. And I have no plans on divulging anything that Quincy has shared with me. As complex as the situation is, I have no issue with you. So you get to decide whether you have an issue with me and whether you can continue participating in this group." Amora sat in complete silence and stunned while Angela was speaking. After a few moments of complete silence, during which time Amora was literally racking her brain, trying to think of what all she'd shared to date with the previous women's leader during group and so on, to figure out just how much Angela knew. And then she finally said, "Can I see that file that you read of mine?" Angela said, "Sure, I made a copy just for you." Angela handed it to her, and she started flipping through the pages. And as she flipped through, she got angrier and angrier and angrier. After a few moments, Amora said, "So you want me to believe that you've read this file and you haven't told Q everything that you read?" Angela looked at her and calmly replied, "You don't have to believe me, but no, I haven't told him anything." Amora said, "But why not? Why wouldn't you tell him everything that you know? I'm assuming you have some romantic interest in him. Is that correct?" Angela said, "You could say that." Amora said, "Well, I can comfortably say that you're not really his type. You're a little larger than he prefers." Angela chuckled and said, "And that's relevant how?" Amora said, "Well, I would think that you would need to use whatever information you had at your disposal to ensure your position." Angela said, "I can understand why you might feel that way. I read your file, remember? But listen, I don't compete, I complete." Amora said, "What's that supposed to mean?" Angela said, "It means this is not a competition, sweetheart. I'd never use another woman's truth to get what I want from a man. Manipulation is witchcraft, and I don't participate. Morris said, but why should I trust you with all of the details of my personal life, of my personal business? There's information in here about my son. Angela said, you don't have to trust me with any of your personal business. You can simply share it all with Quincy, and then there won't be anything for me to expose. That was kind of the purpose of this meeting. A, I know Quincy. B, I can help you. Amora said, I don't need your help, Angela said. Then why exactly are you a member of the women's group? Amora said, that's not what I mean. Yes, I have some things that I'm trying to work through, and I joined the group so that I could work through them, but I don't need your help as it pertains to this situation, Angela said. No problem. Amora said, I don't understand why you would even continue to be the leader of the women's group with a conflict of interest like this. This shouldn't even be allowed. Angela picked up the phone on her desk and said, hey, yes, can you come in here, please? Thank you. And hung up the phone and stared at Amora while she waited for the person who she called to walk in the door. After a few moments, the door opened and in walked Pastor Corey. Angela looked at Pastor Corey and said, Pastor, Michelle here has some concerns about me continuing as the leader of the women's group. The pastor came in and took one of the other empty seats, looked at Amora, and said, what's the issue? Amora said, what's the issue? The issue is that she's sleeping with my ex and she's read my entire file. Pastor Corey said, did she tell you that she's having sex with your ex? Amora said, well, no, she didn't tell me that, but of course she is. Angela chuckled. Pastor Corey shook his head and said, you have to be careful about making assumptions about people you don't know and then speaking based on them, because that could be considered slander. Amora said, well, whatever the case, she's romantically involved with him and she knows all of my business. What's to stop her from going and telling him or anybody else what she's read in that file? Pastor Corey said, the same thing that stopped her from telling anybody up until this point. She read the file nearly a week ago. The same thing that compelled her to share her story with you and all of the other women in group yesterday. The same thing, and Angela interrupted and said, that compelled me to have this meeting with you. And the same thing that gave me the wherewithal to leave my daughter in your care and custody today, despite knowing all of the things that I now know about your previous experiences and the decisions that you've made. I'm not standing in judgment against you. It isn't my job to tell your story. There are going to be a lot of people who are going to be hurt and upset when the truth comes out. But I know God. Because I do, I know that it will come out. And when it does, it will be in His time. And I'll be there to help the people that I love put the pieces back together. It's up to you whether I'll be there to support you through it. The ball is in your court, and you've already put it in motion. When you told Quincy that you had something you needed to speak with him about, you raised the flag, honey. And when you lied to Donovan, you activated a tsunami. So either way, it's in your best interest to tell the truth sooner rather than later. Now I will maintain your confidentiality because that's my obligation. It's one that I take seriously, and I've committed to do that. I would never jeopardize my certification or my role in the church as a women's leader. I also would never dishonor myself by dishonoring another woman. And I won't force your hand, even if it would be to my advantage. Anything that I stand to lose by remaining silent was never mine to have in the first place. But what I won't do is help you lie, deceive, manipulate, or perpetuate discord. So my advice to you is that you tell the truth sooner rather than later. With that said, you get to decide whether you want to participate in the women's group and allow me to support you through this process, or whether you want to handle it on your own. But whatever you decide, Maura looked at Angela and said, you must be out of your damn mind. There is no way in hell I'm remaining in this group. Pastor Corey said, Michelle, please watch your language. As the leader of the children's ministry, I expect for you to operate with some decorum, despite the difficulty of this situation. Michelle stood up and said, and I expect that this church will be run a whole lot better than this. I could have been told about this well in advance of this meeting. I should not have been subjected to that group meeting yesterday. I should have been told as soon as you knew that you knew Q and you knew about my business. I should have been told before now. Hell, your best friend could have told me when she came to my office threatening to kill me. Angela said, oh, she would have, had she known that you were a member of this group. I had to put two and two together in order to figure out that Michelle and Amora were one and the same, dear. Amora said, don't dare me. Don't sweet talk me. Don't sit here all calm and composed and well put together and try to make it seem like you're better than me, like you talking down on me. Pastor Corey said, Michelle, you really need to calm down. Angela's a professional. You expect for her to get all worked up and upset about a situation that you created? Really? She's a better woman than most, because most women would have just told all your business and pretended like it wasn't them. That's why I chose her for this job, because she's not like most women. Amora said, well, it sounds like you got the right woman for the job, but I won't be participating in the women's group. And if there's a problem with me continuing to be over the children's ministry, let me know now so I can go pack up my stuff. Pastor Corey said, do you want to resign from your position over the children's ministry? Amora said, well, no, of course I don't. But I just feel like y'all don't want me here. Pastor Corey said, Michelle, I think that you and I should talk alone in my office. Angela, I'll follow up with you later on in the week and see how things are going over at the house. Make sure everything is settled. Angela said, no problem, Pastor. Amora, hopefully you and I can have a follow-up conversation. Pastor and Amora walked out of Angela's office, and Angela let out a sigh of relief. She grabbed her things and headed out to the parking lot where Regina was waiting.